City Council meeting for the City of Dunsmuir at approximately 6:01 p.m. on April 18, 2019. We will begin with roll call, please.
Councilmember Deutsch.
Here.
Councilmember Ryan.
Present.
Councilmember Kessler.
Here.
Councilmember Art.
Here.
And Mayor Case.
Here. All right, we're all here. We will now stand for the flag salute, please. Councilmember Ryan, will you please lead us off?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. We'll now move into approval of the agenda. Are there any questions or comments about the agenda?
I'll make a motion.
I asked staff a question about, with reference to the consent agenda, item B and item C.
Would it constitute anything of pulling it off that you might not agree with voting, or could you wait for your question to be asked at consent?
With item B, I didn't find a memo in my packet. Is there a memo or no memo?
There should have been a staff report. I left my computer at home, so we were doing it the old-fashioned way.
Thought we were just eliminating it.
Yeah, there's a staff report.
I did read a staff report.
So there's something in writing in here somewhere?
Yes.
Page 10?
It was your idea to eliminate
No. I'm with it.
You just want staff.
It's just that as we transition from what I hope is the elimination of this ad hoc committee or pro tem committee to the Public Works Committee that you're chairing, Councilmember Keisler, I want to make sure we have a smooth transition and don't drop it. That's the only discussion I want to have. So I assume the action item was eliminating the interim committee.
Yes.
Oh, here we are. Okay, good. And then the other item
Was C.
was C, and here is the only change, the matter of safety uniforms, or is this a renegotiation of the MOU?
The MOU is exact as it was, so the current MOU that's in effect, the only change that is being made is the removal of laundered shirts because it's been an expensive or pain and they're not utilizing. And in place of that, we're taking the cost savings from that and buying safety shirts. That's the only change.
So negligible financial impact. Okay.
So is it something that would influence your vote that you wouldn't be consenting to that?
No, I am fine on the MOU, and whether it's in committee reports or pulling the wastewater thing off of consent, especially as we're losing the city manager. Chairman Keisler and I met as a Public Works Committee, but we have issues we need to move forward, and
It sounds
the
like that.
public is the best place to discuss it.
I think that's probably more appropriate for committee reports.
Very good. Then I'm fine with the agenda as is.
That
Okay.
being said, I make a motion to approve the agenda.
Is there a second?
Second.
All right, any other discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor of approving the agenda for the regular meeting of April 18, 2019, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? The agenda is set and we will move on. Item number 5 is approval of the minutes for the regular meeting of March 21st, 2019. Is there any amendments or questions about the minutes?
I make a motion to approve the minutes of the March 21st, 2019 meeting.
Is there a second?
Second.
All right, there's a motion by Councilmember Kessler, second by Councilmember Art to approve the minutes for March 21st, 2019 as presented. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries. Minutes are approved. Item number 6, presentations. We have no presentation scheduled tonight, so that will move us into item number 7, which is committee reports, and Councilmember Art kind of started us off, so please feel free to.
Go ahead.
No, I am proudly serving as vice chair for the Finance Committee, and I don't know if the council has to bless the outcome of my meeting with Councilmember Keisler, but I asked that he be chair of the Public Works Committee. And in both instances, we had very productive meetings, but I'd let the chairs address it.
I'll let you take the public works, because I like how you wrapped it up when we finished. If you just said the same thing, that'd be perfect. And then on the next committee, I would like to have Matthew tell us about the contract with the sheriff.
Okay. So I think he wants to wrap up the Public Works Committee.
Well, for Public Works, and I'm not going to dig out the memo, but the jurisdiction assigned to the Public Works Committee by the City Council includes our enterprise funds except for the airport and the historic district. And we had no staff present at our meeting, which lasted for an hour. We would like to have citizen members of the Public Works Committee. We would like to have access to Pace Engineering. And we have a number of issues that we're not sure procedurally, do they need to come out of our Public Works Committee to the agenda, or can the chair and the vice chair move them directly to the agenda? Let's take an example. The sewer and the solid waste enterprise funds are within our jurisdiction. We know the choice of waste hauler and the rates and terms for hauling Dunsmuir's waste is an important issue. We have a council 5-0 vote. We need to hire a wastewater 3 operator under the recommendation of Pace Engineering by the end of the fiscal year. Does that go directly to the agenda? Does that have to bubble out of our community? We don't know. So we're really, in the first instance, wanting to get organized so we need status support.
I think from my perspective, I think it would be very helpful to have a resolution clarifying the goals and missions, kind of similar to the other committees. One, that'll clarify then if you're a Brown Act committee or not. Because if you're going to have residents serve on the committee, it's going to qualify as a Brown Act committee. So we want to make sure that's all formally set. Also assigning a secretary, things like that. I think once you guys sit down and say, okay, this is the goals and missions, I think it'll be very important for, you as a member of both the Finance Committee and Public Works to really define who's actually in charge of funds as opposed to services. So I think that's something you'll have to definitely talk about at your next meeting. I think definitely noticing it to the public, even though it may not be a Brown Act committee at this moment, it would be really good to get their input. But I think coming back with a resolution to establish your mission, your procedures, and your purpose would be helpful, I think, for the rest of council to understand, because I don't know if Public Works.
One of the questions that we had, and I know you're leaving, but as city manager, if we have some special questions, the only person that could answer that question would say, let's say Ron, or Bill,
Yeah.
or even Dennis, or even Brian. If it was something to do with that situation, and the best person I'm going to get information would be that employee. Does council have the right to ask them to come to a meeting, to a committee, and answer these questions? And if so, is it on time, or is it, if it's at a meeting, is that, do we pay them? You know what I mean? We can't demand they come and answer questions.
No, the typical protocol that's wrapped up in our ordinances is that we as a council communicate with our employee, which technically we only hire one employee, and that's Mark. And we do have a contract for an interim city manager.
How do we get any questions answered? We don't.
Correct. We would send them to the interim city manager at this point, and then in the future we would send them to the new city manager. But the city managers are go-between with staff, and so it would be the city manager's position to say, oh, yes, let's have this person at the meeting, or maybe I'll just ask this person and then bring that information to them. The same thing for your resolution, I think it helps staff to see how often are you meeting and what staff person is going to be the most appropriate to be your staff liaison if they are there to assist you. For example, it makes sense that the staff liaison for finance is Blake, because Blake is the finance director. And so I think once we have a resolution set, we will have an interim city manager, and we will have a new city manager, but that city manager is technically the only employee that we are allowed to hire, fire, talk to, funnel through. Whom they employ, you know, the wastewater 3 tech, we know we have to have that by state standards, but it's ultimately under the city manager to do that hiring, to do that staffing. And, you know, that'll happen after 218, however
So
that goes through.
what you're saying is, no, we don't get to talk to them, and all questions go to the city manager.
Correct, and the city manager.
I never get it from the horse's mouth.
Well, the city manager could request one of his or her employees to attend the meeting for better clarification.
I mean,
This is the,
we're good with that? This council's good with that?
well, this is the only,
What it comes down to, we want to ask questions, and I want it from the person that's actually turning the wrench, so
well,
to
you
speak.
know, that's not the way it works. This is the only person we direct, and we direct with 1/5 of the vote. The whole idea is that he or she is the person who determines how they're going to respond. We can ask all the questions, and if he doesn't know the answers, he can come back.
And the city manager is going to listen to your request, and if needed, make sure that that person is at a meeting, most likely with the city manager in attendance, to help, and if that's what this council is looking
It would
for.
be similar to
But it
inviting Paul.
Yeah, and inviting, and the finance director. That
John Kenny.
Yeah, well, John Kenny's directly, that's the other one, John Kenny worked for the.
Yeah, technically John Kenny's our other employee.
But if
So
you're.
if we have a good city manager, most likely they'll have that person there with them to answer your direct questions.
But if it's
So,
after hours, it's
somehow
over.
we can-
Yeah.
Somehow we can get to,
Well, with your permission, I will take the first shot at drafting the resolution requested by the mayor. We are going to be around that committee. The resolution will be drafted to make the city manager a mandatory member whenever we meet. He or she will be there, and we will reserve and get
It will have,
permission from the council that if we need members of the public works.
if you are
as
gonna have,
soon as you're done with it,
yeah, and if you are requesting someone from Public Works, it will have to be during the work hours.
that was the other thing.
Yeah, you will have to kind of
Where we
work,
have to make that committee meeting during work hours, when they can come up and give us a couple minutes.
yep, or you would have to be willing to give them overtime or
That's
whatever the
what's the
school.
question, that we're getting this full thing. Okay,
Yep, anytime staff is at a meeting, they are getting paid to be at that meeting.
we got it.
And that's going to swing off of, Big Dave has a job.
Correct.
I'm retired, so we'll make it be as cost effective to the staff and us as we can.
Cool.
All right,
Next.
Sure. So Big Dave and I met with the sheriff's, Captain Hotman, our second meeting to negotiate the MOU between the city and the sheriff's department for law enforcement services within jurisdiction of Dunsmuir. We're in a tough place here, and I'm sure Big Dave can talk to you, because based on the audited costs for the sheriff's department, the hourly rate, per sheriff's hour, is increasing drastically, such that if we kept the same quota of hours, 7,200 hours a year, or roughly 20 hours a day, active patrol, we would see an increase of over $144,000 in the yearly rate. In addition to almost doubling, not quite, the overtime rate, a greater increase. Now clearly this is a greater increase than consumer price index over the same period of time. Costs are going up, employment costs are. Their labor costs I know are going up, and they're struggling to keep deputies. But the city of Dunsmuir, in our current economic situation, it was very difficult news to hear that to maintain the same level of coverage with the same organization, at least just going forward as normal, we would experience that increase. It's almost impossible for our budget to sustain without some creative thinking or cutting a great many other programs just to try to make up part of this difference. So with that in mind, Big Dave and I kind of approached the negotiation, first to talk about clarification with how we can restructure and perhaps foster better communication. The Sheriff's Department was extremely receptive to this. I think they themselves have desired greater communication between the city manager and the members of the public here in Dunsmuir and their organization here. So the current working hypothesis is that we will cut back our hours to our level of funding that we're able to sustain, essentially the same amount going forward, but we're going to include an addendum allowing us to purchase more hours at that locked-in rate. If needed. So we're going to see, because we talked at great length about what it would look like. This would go to 14 and a half hours in point. And no one, even the most qualified, who's been here for many years in the Dunsmuir law enforcement scene, really quite know exactly how that would work and whether 16 hours is the correct amount, given the difficult situation we're in. So currently we're looking to draft that sort of understanding where we're going to continue at the rate we're able to barely afford currently, with the understanding that if necessary, us as a city is going to have to find funds to extend the coverage. But the Sheriff's Department, to their credit, is eager to continue law enforcement without an interruption, to understand that they're getting fewer hours, but that community engagement is something that we all demand of our law enforcement. They're incredibly receptive to that. They currently have staffing shortages, but we do have a commitment from them to strongly, when able, to only have 2 people kind of always interacting with us. We'll have our police chief, who's here 4/10, not allowing for vacation time.
Which that will be Ben.
That will be Ben, and that the other sergeant in South Sister County, he will be here during the daytimes or afternoon shifts when Ben is not here, so that...
And that's Adam.
Well, it could be whoever the sheriff selects. The sheriff's responsible for all employment in that, but in the current iteration, it would be Adam Christie.
Oh, yeah.
So they're very interested in going along with our demands for moving towards more of a city police force that represents the city, that's engaged with our community, that walks the streets. They're very excited to do that. Obviously, the cutting of the hours is going to be something that the city is going to have to watch and monitor. And if those hours are not enough, we are going to have to make some very difficult funding decisions. It's difficult enough to go forward at the current costs, but we do hope that with greater communication and this slight restructuring, we'll be able to optimize the hours we are able to purchase.
Thank you. Are there any council questions for that?
Sounds like they decided.
Or does Ben have anything to throw there too, so,
No, I don't. I mean, I think summarized
okay.
pretty well.
Sounds like they
We're still
did.
working on.
Madam Mayor,
Yes.
even if I wasn't sitting next to the sheriff's representative, 10 years ago, I sat in your chair, and the city council of Dunsmuir went from 4.5 deputy positions to 4 deputy positions. And it was a vote I hated to cast, but we unanimously decided the city was in such dire condition that we had to do it. The point is, in the heart of Councilmember Bryan's report, is whether it was Sheriff Riggins or Sheriff Lope, it was 100%. We'll make this work for you. And it sounds like you're reviving that partnership. I hope as Dunsmuir recovers economically, we can increase our presence.
That's kind of that's the same attitude from both parties that we got, so.
Councilmember Deutsch?
I just wanted to commend the effort you put in. I think it sounds like you're looking in a wide area. We're kind of up against the wall, but I appreciate the effort you're putting in, the creativity.
I gotta tell you, if you guys wanna dissect the dollar, let these 2 guys right here do it, because they're very good at it. So, we tried everything we could. This was the best deal that we could, this is what fit the city, and hopefully we'll get blessings moving forward.
Yeah, the sheriff's department is working on the county side of it, and we hope to bring something to council by mid-May.
Okay, wonderful. Moving on, I know I sent you an email about the Trails and Recreation Committee will hopefully be meeting with Tom Hesselden as a follow-up to his presentation at the first couple weeks of May. I will be gone for work next week, so we're going to be following up with him if you were here for his presentation at the last meeting to make sure that the Moss Spray Falls project continues to move along at a good pace. So we'll be doing that in the next couple of weeks. And then as the council will see on the agenda tonight, we will have a presentation of a city manager interim contract to enter into an interim agreement. We've shifted a little bit to make sure that there was continuity of a city manager position in the meantime between hiring a new one and Mark leaving today. So that's pretty much what we've been working on with John Kenny to make sure that that's ready to go. So. Are there any other committee reports for today?
That's kind of a good follow-up time because I wanted to address Neighborhood Watch, and as we move into fewer hours, obviously having a more robust Neighborhood Watch will be critical. I waited till tonight just because it's been confusing to try and sift through this, but we had a conflict with the with the calendar. And so at the same time, we had both the Disaster Preparation Committee and also the Neighborhood Watch. We looked at several different areas. I talked with Linda Shaven, who's the chair of the Disaster Preparedness Committee, and talked with Sergeant Wedstein. And from my viewpoint, it would not work to have two different places because some of the key people go back and forth. Obviously, Sergeant Wedstein, I know Linda wanted to be more involved, and et cetera. So what I'd like to try and do is find a date right now with the calendar keeper over there. How does Wednesday look of next week?
Should be okay. The only group that meets on Wednesday that I know of is the planning commission. That's the second Wednesday.
But it's not this Wednesday coming then, right?
No.
Right. Can we set that time for you?
We were talking about for the neighborhood watch meeting?
Next Wednesday.
Yeah, that would work for me.
Okay, next Wednesday, the neighborhood watch, and the goal will be to get the people that have been identified as block captains, either willing or maybe willing, and meet with them. And then the goal after that will be to set up. Linda, do you know what date they're having the community care team thing down there?
May 31st. You mean Stephen?
Yeah.
Yeah, May 31st.
May 31st is a date that has already been set up where the Community Resource Center is having an evening. It's a Friday. They're having an evening for children and families to get together. And so it dawned on us that would be a good opportunity to do two other things. So we're going to try and work towards that particular evening on Friday of having both that event, but tied into it a volunteer fair where people in town that are new or people in town who haven't been doing anything or connected can come down and find a way to connect up. I'm going to hopefully have all the different organizations that have volunteer hours to pull their information together. And then also that'll be a good opportunity for Neighborhood Watch. So to get people, the idea is for us to have on that Friday night, put all our energy into getting all the citizens to spend a few minutes down at the community center to maybe have a burger. If they have kids, they got the kids there to do that. They can look around, find things that they may want to volunteer for, and then they can also make sure they signed up for the Neighborhood Watch. And the whole idea then is to move into the summer season, having had an opportunity to really try to generate a productive Neighborhood Watch. So that's the game plan going forward, and your support would be appreciated. That's all.
Thank you. Councilmember Bryan, you had your hand up about a committee report.
So I would just want to confirm that after this meeting on Wednesday for the neighborhood watch, we're going right back to the regular scheduled monthly meetings of the first, second Thursday of the month.
Yeah. This is
so it's
complex and everything else. Yeah.
Okay.
Did I hear anybody say anything about potluck at that meeting?
We probably can, but we'll.
Well, he's out of town for a couple weeks. That's not potluck. Hey, you know.
Someone's got to feed you.
Yeah.
I just wanted to follow up on the Finance Committee met, our first meeting. We elected myself as district chairman, Councilmember Art, vice chairman. We authorized the application process. We'll be having an application shortly. That should be within a week at City Council for Citizen, or City Hall for citizen members. We revisited the budget process and kind of the timeline for that. And it's going to be the primary focus of the Finance Committee for the next 2 months. For the most part. I just wanted to let everyone know that we'll be having many meetings coming up here. We'll be meeting, it's kind of a tentative list, but we're, in terms of the timing, we'll be meeting the 25th, May 1st, 9th, 22nd, 30th, possibly June 5th. with the goal of bringing a recommended budget to the council by the June 6th meeting.
Okay, thank you. That's robust.
Well, one point on, as I mentioned when I was talking about the Public Works Committee, Big Dave and I, for all the work the council and the Citizens Committee on sewer and solid waste have done, with the 5-year plans and the rate plans, I think we are now looking forward and we have plans 5 years into the future for our water. Credit to everybody, solid waste and sewer. But the airport, we have to have the input on the one fund, whether it's enterprise or not, that is drawing from the general fund before we adopt our budget in June. So I understood there's a workshop or a business plan or something coming that we will have as an input for our budget.
Correct. All right, any other committee reports here? Linda, would you like to give?
Just real quick.
Yeah, feel free to go.
Ankle's looking better, huh?
Yeah, Linda Shaven, the chair of the Disaster Planning Advisory Committee, very enthusiastic about the Vision 2020 Fire Summit in Reading. Thank you for sending us there. So eventually we want to put together a little written report for our committee and you. The other thing that's happening, we'll be meeting next week, and thank you for being flexible, Bruce. I talked to Stephen at the Community Resource Center, and he's very willing to help us with Neighborhood Watch in terms of putting a database together for our neighborhoods. So he can utilize some of his staff if we help them and we help populate it. And we help, keep that up to date. So I think that's a really nice fit. The other thing that Chief Padilla is going forward with on May 11th, he's already trying to, I think he's still on vacation right now. Yeah. So I just wanted to make sure everybody had the date, May 11th. We're trying to work with him. He wants to put together the first open house big event at the community center, the community center by the ball field, to bring all our partners together so people, the citizens can learn about fire safety, fire prevention. We want to get master gardeners there. We want to get some of the nurseries there to talk about plants that you can grow. We want to give all the materials that we can hand out in terms of defensible space. We'll have the fire engines there. So hopefully that date works out for him and the folks that he's inviting. So we're going to start, if that gets solidified, we'll start doing some promotion on that.
Thank you so much, Linda.
Okay?
All right, and I invite anybody who has any more questions for Linda and the Disaster Planning Advisory Group to go to a meeting next week. That should be wonderful. All right, seeing no other committee reports for today, we'll move into announcements and public comment. I'd like to remind the public that this is for items that are not on the agenda, anything related to our committee reports, or anything on the consent agenda, so this is the appropriate time to take that. And again, you will have 3 minutes for your public comments, and it is now open.
Leslie Wild, 6200 Elmore Street. I got a notice in the mail for some garbage and sewer increases, and a lot of local citizens have been calling me. They perhaps think I'm some sort of an expert, but I have some questions for the council. So the notice says, the council's been directed to mail notices to all record owners. I own a lot of records, by the way. I ruled in the 80s. I'm the record owner of my property, but it says they're also going to send notices as well to all existing utility billing customers. So that tells me that if you own a home and you rent it out, the city will send a notice to the owner of the home, and then they will also send one to like the tenants if the water bill or garbage bill is in their name. So that's 2 ballots. And then later in the same notice it says, however, only 1 written notice per property will be counted. So it sounds like the city's sending out maybe 2 ballots or 2 notices to 2 different people on the same property, but you're only going to count 1. So people have questions about that. And then it also says each protest must identify the proposed rate being protested, and there's like dozens of rates, so people are confused. Like, can they just say they protest the increase, but because the wording on the letter says must identify a proposed rate being protested, there's confusion about that. And then lastly, it says that they have to identify their APN number, and that's not disclosed on a utility bill, so most people don't know their APN numbers. And additionally, Proposition 218 doesn't say you have to identify an APN number, so there's a lot of confusion. So just to reiterate, my questions are, how will you resolve which ballot will count? Like if the tenant and the owner each send one, how will you determine which one you will count? By sending out 2 notices, will that, I know you're looking at your time, I get to finish. By sending out 2 notices, will that increase the threshold? In that if there's 500 record owners and you're sending out 500 notices, but you're also sending them to the people whose utility bill in, does that increase the threshold to now 1,000, so you have to have half of that to reach the protest level? And then what about the APN numbers and identifying the rate? Can they just say they want to protest the increase and not identify a rate, because there's literally dozens? I hope you answer those questions.
Thank you. Are there any other public comments related to the committee reports, general comments, or comments on the consent agenda items?
Yes. Tim Holt, and first of all, as a member of the pool committee, Citizens Pool Committee for the Rec Department, I just want to give a very brief update on the situation about keeping our pool open this season. There are 3 issues. One is staffing, getting an adequate number of lifeguards. The second one is funding. The pool is losing, I think, around $17,000 to $18,000 a year. And the third one is a crack at the bottom of the pool. So, and Dave can tell you about this too. He was there yesterday at the job fair at the high school. I understand 25 applications were handed out to young people. I think we only need actually 5 of them to qualify. And we've got one person coming back from last year, I believe. The funding issue, of course, involves the TUT tax. So obviously I'm hoping the council and the finance committee will seriously consider the needs of the rec department for pool funding when that comes up. As far as the crack goes, it looks like it's not a really bad one, because if you look at the pool, you drive by there, you will see that it's pretty much keeping the same level of water, which means there's not a big leak probably. That's what they're thinking. Hopefully it can be patched kind of on an interim basis. Hopefully the pool will open July 8th, that's the plan. And there is going to be a complete replacement of the liner after the pool season. So long story short, it looks fairly good for keeping the pool open. So we're keeping our fingers crossed, especially about the applications from young people. One other thing, I had a new experience at the last council meeting, which is in attempting to clarify an answer to a question that I put to Councilmember Bryan, I was interrupted by the mayor and told I couldn't ask the question. And I found this personally disturbing, since it was a legitimate question concerning the functions of the finance committee. But beyond that, I think the issue really is a larger one of whether we want to encourage citizen participation in our city government. And based on my experience at the last city council meeting, it makes me wonder, with all due respect, if our mayor remembers who she's working for and who elected her. And I also will have some specific comments when the protocols come up about some of these matters also. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, are there any other public comments?
Carol, Cedar Street.
And I'm Lori Watts Cool Sons. Hi. First time, we're nervous.
A few of we just wanted to let the council know that some of the businesses in town, especially in the historic district, have been meeting to plan events and fun activities for tourists and things that will be coming, to the openings of the museum. Every month they open up a new show, and we want to have each business that participates do some sort of event or run a special, or the restaurants might, have a special menu or something, and it will be promoted between funding from the businesses themselves and the SAM newsletter and their mailing list, which is extensive. They always have a really good turnout, and we kind of want to make it like a citywide monthly event and have it build over time, and maybe even turn into sort of like a festival that goes year round. And so we just wanted to let you know that that's what we're doing, and the first event will be on May 11th, so the opening in May.
And it's called?
And it will be called Dunsmuir Second Saturday. Thank you, Linda. I'm really exhausted today, was a busy day. But yeah, we are pleased to hopefully generate some revenues for the city, bring people in even for overnight stays. Siskiyou Economic Development has like an incentives program that they will actually help with funding for advertising these events in the town, and so we will be applying for like some grant money to do that, and like a little training that they give, and to assure that you fill out their application correctly, and so that hopefully we can bring some more funds into the city to promote ourselves and the museum.
Yeah, we just saw how many, or we all see how many people that the event draws when Sam has the second Saturday opening. Just want to piggyback off that.
Yeah.
We're going to go around around to the businesses, tell them what we're up to, and see how they can get involved somehow. Like Mossbury Hotel said maybe he'd do some little hoity-toity wine and cheese thing. I know Yolanda says she would love to have one of those painting classes at the same time. Maybe businesses will have specials, or
I'm going to have my
percentage off.
a musical thing.
That's your 3 minutes, but thank you so much for putting the event together. If you have any one last closing statement, we'll take that.
Basically, anyone that wants to spread the word, let them get a hold of Ernie. Ernie is kind of the keeper of our mailing list right now, or Yesha Matthews at the new shop that just opened at Wellsprings. What is it called? Next to.
Thank you very much.
Yes, thanks.
Thank you.
And we'll let you know if we need anything, but we don't now. So.
My name is David Hicks. I'm a licensed attorney, licensed by the state of California and the city of Dunsmuir. Have you ever noticed how you never see cockroaches running around in broad daylight? They're always sneaking around in the dark. So my comment is about Bruce's committee report, and that is simply this. In Europe, you don't have a lot of street crime at night because everybody walks on the sidewalks at night. The heat of the day is off. So every time we have these events, I was loving hearing your comments. Every one of these events is a crime prevention event by itself. Okay, the other thing I wanted to comment on was the contract with the sheriff's office. I have no interest in changing any of the parameters or any of that, but I'd like to share some observations based on my 6 years as a member of the California Department of Justice as a Deputy Attorney General in Criminal Division and an Alameda County Deputy District Attorney prosecuting over 400 trials, 22 murder cases, all successful, and 64 successful appeals. So I've had some good experience. So from that experience, I wanted to share a couple things. One is, if we have to cut back on the number of staff, please try to make an effort to keep experienced officers on duty. The fewer they are, the more that experience counts. They know who the cockroaches are and where they hang out. So I wanted to say, I'm hoping their scheduling is creative to be where they need to be, and I'm sure they're trying to do that. But to be there, I know who some of the troublemakers around town are. I know where they live. I've had experiences with them. And I'm sure the sheriff's had way more than I have, so. I'd also like to see them occasionally follow some of the school buses around, because I've personally witnessed a couple people blast by the school buses when the red lights are flashing. And just this week in the United States, we have had 2 children who were killed getting off of school buses, one in 2 different states. So I thought that was maybe a good activity, if you don't do it, to consider. And there was one other, oh yes. So because my office looks right out on the street, I'm kind of aware over the years that on Friday nights, the CHP comes rolling through town. So maybe that's an area where we can save a little time when we know they're in town without having to double schedule, since you're going to be short on hours. Those are my thoughts. I hope they're helpful. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Are there any other public comments on anything not on the agenda, consent agenda, or committee reports? Seeing none, we'll close the public comment and move into item number 9, which is announcements and reports from council and staff.
Madam Mayor?
Yes.
Ladies, I have a question for you, like we're out of here. Before you leave, I have a question. So this thing you guys are putting on, this is a SAM sponsored thing, or
No.
are you guys through the chamber?
In conjunction with the openings that they do every month on the second Saturday. Like they're working with us to, add us to their mailing list, to their newsletter and stuff, to say there'll be citywide events happening every second Saturday. Come early, stay overnight.
Are you guys working with the chamber on this? I mean, this is kind of a chamber.
Richard joined our
Yes?
meeting today.
Yeah, we're working together.
Cool.
Yeah.
Then you have my blessings.
Yeah, I had a prepared statement, but we kind of thought better of some of the things that were on it, and so we had something prepared to pass out to everyone, but we thought we weren't really prepared yet to sort of ask for some things that we might ask for in the future.
Well, once you do, we would like to have a copy, if that'd be possible, to get them in our mailboxes, and then we'll talk with city staff about posting
I'll
that.
refine it a little bit, I guess. We could still, do a written description of what we're doing, but maybe, not, there were some requests upon that paper that we actually feel that we're not ready for.
Okay.
We're going to get the whole thing going. We're going to really try to roll with it. By next year, we want it to really be something that the city is supporting.
We
So-
wish you luck.
Thank you very much. Sorry, we're gonna keep order really quick. This is not out of protocol, but I think what would be nice is as you get closer to putting something together, we would really like maybe to come back and have a presentation to us after your first event, just to answer some, it sounds like there's more questions and more interest, and just for protocol's sake, we're just gonna.
Madam Mayor, before they go, I wanted to point out something. I know Lori is here today, and I think there's something that is really special that just happened recently. And I know that Jim and Lori were going through a problem where they were trying to find a place to live. They were having to move. And I thought it was beautiful the way the whole community just really jumped forward and tried to find every way they could to get them to find a home, and they eventually were able to stay. But I thought it was a perfect example of why Dunsmuir is such a special place, and I'm glad that you were able to stay where you are.
And we'll be back on the market looking for a home around Christmas time, but we managed to buy ourselves some more time.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, moving into other announcements and reports from, let's start with council. Big Dave, you want to keep going?
Yeah, good.
Yeah.
Okay. I would like to remind everybody about the Citizen of the Year, Alexander Dunsmuir, the Business of the Year, and the nonprofit dinner that's coming up. I cordially invite everybody to go. And you're going to see that. Richard, what was the date on that?
May 11th.
May 18th. Okay. This Saturday, this egg is the egg hunt, I believe. It's this Saturday. I'm trying to remind everybody. And then it gives me great honor, and I'm very proud to announce that this year Railroad Day is sponsored by Edna Brewery, Castle Rock Water. So I thought that was pretty cool. Big shout out. And
To the tune of?
to the tune of $10,000. So they sponsored railroad days.
Wow.
So again, and the city of Dunsmuir cordially thanks them.
Wow.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yeah. Councilmember Bryan?
I gave my report.
You're good? Councilmember Deutsch?
I just wanted to obviously take a moment here in the middle of things just to thank Mark for his service and to know that in the confusion after the meeting, it'll be kind of an ignominious exit, but at the same time, we'll remember you always and all you were able to help us through this period of time and launch us into the future, so thank you.
Councilmember Art?
Little items. One is a question, I guess, to Blake, and that is, I actually read my California Cities magazine that was in my mail slot. Not a bad publication. One of the articles was about Proposition 68. And it said, every city in California, if I read the article correctly, if they file, is eligible for $200,000. Did I read that correctly?
Sure did.
Are we on it?
Well, so Mark's actually been working on it a little bit. It's we're filing a notice by June 3rd or something like that, and then funds.
June 3rd is exactly the date.
Yeah. So that's like a notice about it. But then it's a little bit pushed out further for the actual funds and things.
Right.
But we're in the process. And you're
Thank you.
correct.
Item 2 is the comments that Leslie made. The city attorney is not here, but as we abolish the special committee that Bruce led and turn things over to the Public Works Committee, I do think we need to keep faith with the citizens. So any questions around the 218 process, if we could have John Kinney inform you and you report back to us at the next meeting.
Yeah, I made a side.
I think those issues are legitimate.
Yeah.
The first time we did 218, there was so much citizen mistrust that we did it twice, an expense to the city, and the second time we hired a professional umpire. So if we could avoid that, that would be nice.
And if anybody knows, if you're doing it wrong, where was that lady? So we need to look at that.
Yes, I have a note for John Kenny to do that, and hopefully we'll get the questions, hopefully posted on our website or do some kind of publication to make sure that the general public will know the answers.
Okay.
Last but not least, I think we've all become aware that the California-Oregon Telephone Company has picked Dunsmuir as community number 3 to at least provide broadband service for business customers.
Correct.
And I thought I saw their van right next to City Hall last week. The question being, do we have broadband connectivity in this building?
Probably not yet. It does take a little bit to set that up, but we can get back with we would have to then become a customer, which I don't know if we go through CalOr or not. No.
Well, we have gone backwards from when I first served on the council, and any citizen could turn on channel 15 and watch these proceedings.
You can still do that. You can do that now.
And we lost that capability.
No, we didn't.
We have it now.
Yeah,
We got it back. It's right online now.
Beautiful.
Yeah, we
have Northland cable.
but,
Right.
so we'll take a look at that. But yes, you have to be a customer of CalOr to engage in the services on the fiber, but Northland also has laid fiber in North Dunsmuir.
I just want to move us into virtual participation in these meetings.
Councilmember Deutsch.
Yeah, I'd like to clarify, just to kind of set the stage for where we are right now. CalOr has been notifying us over the last year or so that they were planning on also moving into the market. We do have Northland Communications here, which you can either get fiber if you want to jump up to that level, but the big thing is now they've moved to the point where they're providing 100 down and 10 up, which is an incredible speed jump from what we had before. I've been talking with Mark about the idea of getting broadband in here. We do have a connection that takes it back over as far as cable's concerned, but to get actual broadband in here so we can start live streaming. That's our goal, is to get to that point. But what we have to do before that is to come up with some sort of a way to connect, whether it's Cal or Northland and our PHI or whatever it's going to take to get that. But our goal is to hopefully get that in here as soon as possible so we can start live streaming.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. And before moving on to staff comments, I just want to say thank you, Mark. After we are done with item number 9, we will be doing a recess. We do have a cake to kind of celebrate his time with us, and we really greatly appreciate you being here, helping us get funding for the Butterfly Bridge project, helping us get funding for all of our infrastructure projects, and we wish you well with your retirement and going back down to Lake Court. So thank you so much. Staff comment? Yep.
So I'll report on March stats. It was a busy month. Just about everything was up in March. We did have a patrol. We had 743 patrol hours. Our calls for service went up about 100 calls for service in the month of March, from 137 in February up to 237. Our cases, 29 cases in March. That was up from 13 in February. Had 34 traffic stops, 21 citations, had 10 arrests. That was up from 5 in February. 2 of those were misdemeanors, 2 of those were felonies, 8 were misdemeanors. We had a couple of incidents at Chevron last month. One was a trespass arrest, one was a resisting arrest. We had a felony child endangerment on a traffic stop on Iskrig. And we had a couple of misdemeanor warrant arrests, as well as possession of methamphetamine arrests. One of them was a 1.6 grams, the other one was a 0.6 gram arrest on Brandstetter. And we also did take a sexual assault that we're still investigating. We had 3 burglaries we had one on Forest Lane, Dunsmuir Avenue, and Upper Soda Road, 2 petty thefts, both on Dunsmuir Avenue, 2 assault and batteries, one on Dunsmuir Avenue, one on Verney Street, 2 vandalisms, both on Dunsmuir Avenue, 3 trespassings, Siskiyou Avenue, and 2 on Dunsmuir Avenue, and then the normal disturbing the peace. We had 16 of those, which were all over the city.
Thank you. Any questions?
A little busy, were you?
It was a busy month. Yeah, I think it's because the sun's coming out.
It's warm.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah.
Any other staff reports for today?
I would like to point out, one of the goals that the council has is for sidewalks. And just out in front of the city hall here, or city council chambers, you'll notice around that tree where the sidewalk was being lifted, there was work, some pavers, the sidewalk was cut, removed, and some pavers put in to reduce potential trip and fall hazard. So that work was done by the city's public works staff, in particular Brian Wilson, so if you get a chance to see the public works staff, give them an attaboy. And I just want to thank the City Council for the opportunity for me to be here and provide the service to the city for the last just over 2 years. It's been truly a pleasure for me and very rewarding. And I look forward to coming back and continue to see all the great things that are in progress. So it's a wonderful place, and I wish the best. And thank the community as well. Thank you.
No other council reports. I would like to now take a 15-minute recess to enjoy the cake to celebrate Mark and his work he's done here, and again, wish him well on his next journey. So, thank you. We'll come back in 10 after 7. We'll call the regular meeting back to order, starting with item number 10, which is our consent agenda. We had a couple of comments, questions about the consent agenda, but right now on our consent agenda is item A, check register for March 29th, 2019 through April 12th, 2019. Item B, wastewater and solid waste rate committee dissolution?
Yeah, dissolvement.
Dissolvement, thank you. And then item number C, which is the employee MOU, which was negotiated through staff, the staff report, I believe is page 11 for the employee MOU.
Madam Mayor, I make a motion to adopt the consent agenda.
Second that.
All right, there's been a motion and a second, and any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, all those in favor of approving the consent agenda items A through B, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Consent agenda passes. We'll now move into item number 11, which is public hearings, which we do not have any public hearings, so we'll move on to item 12, which is old business, and we'll move into item 12A, which is on page 64 item 64 of the package, which is the city council protocols.
Madam Mayor, if you want to take that.
All right, so this is a resolution and the city council protocols that were presented at the last meeting with the minor changes proposed by Councilmember Arp, which were pretty basically minor. I also reformatted it so it looks prettier and is a little bit easier to read with the table of contents and everything. It has a seal on the front. Just want to open it up for any discussion. The city protocols are a guiding document for the city council on how to communicate and lead the city. The document can be adopted, amended through resolution. So if we do anything today, we can adopt. And if there's anything we need to change in the future, we can always come back with a resolution and propose language change. But most importantly, this sets kind of a framework for how we communicate, how we place things on the agenda, which is the very important one, how agendas are set up, and how we communicate with our commissions and committees.
Madam Mayor, there's somewhere in here,
Yep.
it's talking about time at the podium.
Time at podium?
Time, yeah, the time. And it says 10 minutes, 10 minutes.
Let me see.
And we need to change that to 3 minutes?
There is a protocol in here for those who are proposing projects to us. So for example,
Oh, is that what that was?
yeah,
10
it
minutes?
does,
Like, oh,
yeah.
no.
No, it does, there is a public comment section talking about that the public comment is typically around 3 minutes, but it can be determined by the city council. But there is a protocol, for example, if someone is contesting a conditional use permit that the planning commission approved or denied to us, we would give the applicant more time.
Okay.
Just to give a background on their project. So that's the protocol here.
But just not every day, right?
Correct.
Okay.
That would be in the
We'll
circumstances.
be here till 11 o'clock every day.
Correct. And it does have information in there that the council or chair at any time can reduce that number based on the number of people here, as long as it's fair and equal time for all people.
That being said, I have no problems with that package.
All right, are there any other questions? Councilmember Art?
My only question is a procedural one. Did the city attorney get to review it?
Yep, I sent it over to John Kenny, it would have been a couple of days ago, and he got back right away saying he didn't have any issues with it. Similar to the city member, Mr. David Hicks, who had looked at it, he had offered some questions. City Attorney John Kenny had offered up a couple of suggestions to think about for later, but he said that this document at this time is fine. He said there's a couple of different circumstances we might want to consider in the future, but they're not regular business, they're typical special.
Thank you.
Yep. Any other questions before we move into public comment?
Everybody ready?
All right,
Cool.
we'll move into public comment. So the public comment section of our old business item is open for comments just on the city protocol, and you'll have 3 minutes.
Very good. By the way, I have no problem with 3 minutes and when the protocols. I think I understand the need for that. I do have a question about 2 measures. I have read through the protocols. One says council members and staff should avoid entering into a dialogue with members of the public who may address the council. I don't see the reason for that. I think maybe the concern would be if you had 100 people showing up at all your meetings and a big line here, you might be concerned about, myself taking up a lot of time, the dialogue with Councilman Keisler, Councilman Deutsch, but you don't have, this context here is not very many people, encourage citizens, my feeling would be to encourage citizen participation, not discourage it. The other issue I have is related to that, and it says in your protocols, each person is entitled, this is the public person I think we're talking about, each person is entitled to speak on any agenda item only once at any meeting. That's the gist of it. And the right to speak at the appropriate time waives any further right to address the council on that item at that meeting. This is another item that makes no sense to me. Okay, so I'm addressing you on an issue, and I sit down and Dave here makes a comment, and that either makes me think of something additional, or maybe I need to add something to what he said, or whatever. Again, the theme here is citizen participation. Encourage those people who come to your meetings to engage in a dialogue with the council. As long as they're, not going on and on for more than their 3 minutes, I think it's something to be encouraged. And I get the sense from some of these items that there's almost a fear that some of your citizens will detract from and not add to the public discussion, and I don't think that's a good attitude. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Are there any other public comments related to the city council protocols item?
I was not intending to comment, but I do think that to go on your list of possible changes downstream is that council members should be free to ask a question of the speaker or to share information. I think that clearly in the spirit of the First Amendment. So in that regard, I'd like to just agree with what Tim said. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Are there any other public comments related to this item? Seeing none, we'll close the public comment. And Councilmember Keisler, you would like to make a comment?
I would say history. History is why we wrote this. We sat here and we've watched, I don't know what you call it, but it was an argue fest. The reason why we do it this way, it's the time for public statements. So public comments, public come up there, and if we were to respond 5 times to everyone, we'd be here till 11 o'clock. I don't get paid for this job. This is, we come to do the city business here. And we want participation from the audience. But the 3 minutes and the 1 time, these are rules that kind of keep it down so that we can get the business done. And without naming names, there have been people that had to speak on every item for their 3 and push it every time we had a meeting, every meeting. And so these are things that we're trying not to have them situations. And so everybody gets up there and says what they got to say, and then any council member that wishes to respond, like I am now to you, what you said. This wasn't public comment time. This is public comment time on an issue, which is what you did. You spoke on this issue. So that's why we put that in there for this issue, is because the protocols are the rules. We have to have the good rules. They have to work for everybody. We're not trying to make them unfair, but we have to establish a format, and that was let everybody talk, then we can respond to them one at a time and give them their answers. And usually at that point, half the room leaves after they heard what they came to hear. And then we're back down to the few that, like you guys, there's a few of you diehards that hang out for the whole meeting. We appreciate it. We don't like sitting here by ourselves, but then again, when the room's got 100 people in there,
And then I think
we're not doing our business right.
And the other thing to remember is there's more than just council meetings for public interface. And so there are emails, there are phone calls, we live in the community. I've had people stop by my house yesterday. I had 4 people stop by while I was working in my yard to ask me about things. That's just...
And the dogs eat all of them.
No, they didn't. No, they're fine. They don't eat people, they just sound angry, which is kind of like me. But yeah, so there are a lot of different ways to do that. And for Councilmember Keisler, Councilmember Arth, Councilmember Deutsch, who have really pushed for a lot of open forums, workshops. When we get to, say, the airport workshop, there will probably be a lot more opportunity for public comment than a typical meeting. When we get to these meetings, the purpose of the meeting is to make decisions in a timely manner. And so it's not to deter anyone, but it is definitely to keep some semblance of order as we try and make it through and do decisions. So again, similar to the 218, we had the open forum. We're all very cognizant of getting that public feedback, and those are more appropriate ways for people to come up multiple times, take as much time as they want, or even to contact us privately or go to city staff. We do communicate with city staff as well. So there are a number, and Councilmember Arth even pointed out we're trying to reach out via streaming online. We're looking at online opportunities as well. So there are a plethora of ways to give input besides these meetings. Typically, the things that come to these meetings have been through a number of different types of hearings and things like that. For example, I brought the protocols to this council at a meeting and I didn't want them to approve it in one meeting. I wanted to give an opportunity to have multiple meetings to look at this document and take multiple courses. In reference to Mr. Hick's question, there is a line that says council may ask clarifying questions if needed. So we did put that in there. That doesn't really hamper it. It's just making sure we don't go back to dialogue.
Thank you, I didn't have clarity on it.
I guess that's what
Dave explained it very well, and you explained it even.
David?
That.
the back and forth.
Correct.
Yeah.
That's what we're trying to get rid of. Otherwise, every person in here could. I'm with you. Is there any other discussion, Councilmember Deutsch?
Yeah, I'd like to point out specifically when we're dealing with the general public comments and not on a specific issue on the agenda, there is a requirement that we not as a body take in any discussion about something that is not on the agenda. So the idea of answering and getting into any kind of a dialogue actually violates the Brown Act because we're not supposed to deliberate on something unless it's been put before us. So that's why it really does need to be taken in and not really respond unless it's a quick question that we can respond to afterwards.
Is there any other discussion on the item, Councilmember Art?
Well, I simply state my strong support for an effort that's long overdue. I reflect on the comments of Councilmember Keisler, and we are a small community, and some people don't come to these meetings because they think the city council doesn't care about what they think. And when you read Rosenberg's Rules of Order or not, we're all obliged to make this publicly friendly to include the community input. Having said that, at the low point, Big Dave was mayor and I was out there in the cheap seats and it was a hot summer day and he was banging his gavel and saying if I didn't shut up, he was going to call the sheriff and have me arrested. And that sort of characterized the dysfunction, the low point, where whether it was Sam Lanier or Peter Arth or 2 or 3 citizens that are mentally unbalanced, the presiding officer really had to worry about maintaining order. We've come so far since then, and I'm proud of everybody. So to the extent Madam Mayor and Council Member Bryan took the work of former Council Member Spurlock and former Mayor Craig and turned it into a fair set of rules that I think do give enough room for the presiding officer to both maintain order but let citizens feel they're included. This is a good thing and it reflects well on all of us. Thank you.
Madam Mayor?
Councilmember Bryan, did you have any other comments?
No, I do not.
Okay.
I'd like to make a motion to adopt the City of Dunsmuir's protocol, Dunsmuir City Council protocol. So long time coming.
All right.
Second.
And you would like to approve that for resolution 2019-12?
Yes.
Okay, cool. All right, there's been a motion and a second. Is there any discussion on the motion? All right, all those in favor of approving resolution 2019-12, which is a resolution of the City Council of the City of Dunsmuir, California, to adopt City Council protocols by title only. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries.
Hey. Good job, you guys. I know it's a lot of work. Good job.
All right, we will now move on to item number 12B, which is the city manager interim. City manager Brandon, do you want to give a little update on this? I can't remember if there's a staff report in there or not.
There is a short staff report. There was 2 city council members that were placed into the committee for the hiring of the city manager process. The mayor and the council member, Bruce Deutsch, and through that process it became evident that the time was running short and that the interim was going to be have to be sought after, and some direction was given for myself and our attorney John Kenny to look at what are the options, and one of the options was a candidate, someone that has done the job twice in the past and is very familiar with what's been going on here in the city of Dunsmuir, and felt that he'd be a good candidate to come right in and be able to keep things moving until the selection process is complete. And with that, pass it over to the mayor.
That's pretty much it. We realized with Mark leaving today that, talking to other staff, we needed someone to come in and support some of the day-to-day HR issues, similar to what we had talked about with code enforcement, wastewater 3. As we're moving through the 218 process, we do need someone in that administrative position. Randy has done it in the past, and so that's why we didn't go out for a call for interims, is because he does have an extensive amount of knowledge that other people would not be able to have. So the contract has been written by John Kenny, and John Kenny has negotiated with Randy as well, and Councilmember Deutsch.
I just wanted to point out for the record, for the people, the public, that the situation is kind of ironic because after Randy left, after helping identify Mark Brannigan as our city manager, he and his wife Sally were living in Lakeport, and after the fire there, they were in the middle of it, and they decided to move to Paradise. And so they lost everything in Paradise. They lost her home, they lost her RV, and they're living out of their RV right now. So with that in mind, it's kind of a strange, sort of a twisted whatever, but it is an opportunity.
We wanted to come home and Dunsmuir.
It gives them an opportunity to come, and we've been able to identify, I believe, a place that would be able to support them for around $900 a month. So that's a really good deal compared to anything else in the Somerstead. So I just want to let people know that this wasn't something that just kind of reached out for. It kind of fell into our place, and I think it's a fortunate thing for us to have that experience behind us.
So are there any questions of the council right now before I move into public comment? Seeing none, I'll move into public comment. If there's any public comment on the interim city manager contract. Seeing none, we will now move back to discussion. Councilmember Keisler.
I would like to make a motion, if council, if nobody has any objections. Okay, good. For the third time, I would like to make a motion to authorize the mayor to enter a contract with Mr. Randy Johnson to provide interim city manager services to the city of Dunsmuir.
All right, there's been a motion made. Is there a second?
I'll second that.
All right, there's a motion and a second. Any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, we'll move into a vote. All those in
Do
favor?
we need to roll call this one? Just out of curiosity, no?
Technically,
She said no.
You're spending money.
Yes, yeah, you
Okay,
should.
all right, we'll go into roll call. So the motion on the table is to authorize the mayor to enter into a contract with Randy Johnson to provide direction and administrative services via interim city manager. Councilmember Deutsch.
Aye.
Councilmember Bryan.
Aye.
Councilmember Keisler.
Absolutely.
Councilmember Arth.
Abstain?
And myself, I will say aye. All right.
That's kind of anticlimactic.
Isn't it? All right, we will now move into new business. There's no new business, so we will now move to item number 14, which is adjournment. So thank you, everybody, today.